Torat Tzion tells us that we are not accidents of history, nor simply participants in history, but we are drivers of history. Torat Tzion requires us to understand that as human beings, we all have one common overarching goal, and that is to redeem the world and transform it for the better. To birth a world suffused by justice, goodness, prosperity, and transcendence. If, as Martin Luther King Jr. proclaimed, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice, then Torat Tzion charges us with the task of moving history forward. This directive applies to all of humanity. And at this moment in time, more than at any other moment in the entire scope of Jewish history, the Jewish people are capable of partnering with the full breadth of humanity to move history forward. Let me share with you a personal story that illustrates this point. My wife's grandmother, Bubby, is an extraordinary woman who survived the Holocaust by evading the Nazis, hiding in caves, forests, and cemeteries. She was born in Poland and had a large family, including her brother Pinchas, to whom she was very close. Her childhood sweetheart Shlomo eventually became her husband, and together they lived a relatively quiet life in Poland. But then the Nazis invaded. They entered their town and gathered and killed all of the Jews. Bubby managed to escape with her husband Shlomo and a few of their nephews and nieces, but no one else in their large family was as fortunate. She never left her husband's side, and together they managed to evade the Germans and made their way to Romania. Following the war, they left Europe and went to Cuba, and after the rise of Castro, they fled once again, this time to New York. Fast forward the story by a couple of decades, and one day Bubby received a phone call from a friend of hers. Sila, she said, "You need to sit down. I have something astounding to tell you. I just returned from a trip to the Soviet Union, and your brother Pinchas, he is alive. You ran east, he escaped west. You each thought the other was dead, but Pinchas is alive." Bubby immediately wrote to Pinchas. They communicated, but they never met one another, for Pinchas died soon after. But Pinchas had a daughter named Gala, and Gala married Vladimir, and they had a son that they named Pinchas after their father. When the Iron Curtain fell, they all made Aliyah and moved to Israel. Shortly thereafter, Anita and I were studying in Yeshiva University Center in Israel. And at the end of that year, Anita gave birth to our first son, whom we named Shlomo, after her grandfather, who had recently passed away. I still remember the scene when Bubby came to Israel for the bris. She was sitting with her new great-grandson Shlomo on her lap, when in came a woman who carried a clear family resemblance. It was her niece Gala, whom she had never previously met. And with Gala came a little boy named Pinchas. And when Pinchas ran over to see the baby, once again Bubby was surrounded by Pinchas and Shlomo. You see, they thought that they could kill us. They thought that they could remove us from the earth. But Pinchas and Shlomo were alive again. And this time they connected with each other in Jerusalem, the capital of the modern Jewish state of Israel. Bubby's life represents the dramatic story of the Jewish people in the modern era, a story of an indomitable spirit able to transcend destruction and to rebuild a lost world. And it is my great joy at this point to pause for a moment and acknowledge the presence of a woman who's over 100 years old, Bli Ayin Hara, who is here with us today celebrating the investiture of her grandson. Ladies and gentlemen, my Bubby. To me, this story highlights the reality of the Jewish world today, as it provides a stark contrast with the Jewish world of yesterday. The prophet Ezekiel foretells a wondrous future in which the dried bones of Israel are brought back to life. But for us living today, we know that this is no dream. It describes our reality. Pinchas and Shlomo, once left for dead, have now returned in a new generation. And look at the world that they face today. It is an era that is simply unprecedented in Jewish history. We live in an era both miraculous and wondrous. The Jewish people are no longer lost in exile, but have once again returned to their homeland. Torah study is open and accessible throughout the world. Where once we might have looked at our neighbors and saw only persecutors, today we may look at them and see potential partners. And this presents us not only with great opportunities, but also great responsibilities. Rabbi Soloveitchik, in 1956, in this very room, from this pulpit, some of you were in that room on Yom Ha'atzmaut when he said, Kol Dodi Dofek, that the voice of God is metaphorically calling to us in our era, knocking at our door. He has placed us in this incredible time, and he beckons us to respond. Yeshiva University represents the kinds of thinkers and dreamers who have always believed in embracing history and its opportunities. Now more than ever before, it is time to think bigger, to think beyond our individual selves, to move history forward, to spread positive values to the world, and to fight for peace and prosperity for all of humanity and with all of humanity.